right, for all you guys in the back, I know how the wine started, but come on. We all have the same 86,400 seconds in a day. We get to choose who we spend them with and what we do with them. And these amazing panelists that I get to call dear friends have taken time out of their very hectic schedule this week to come share with you how to take the BS out of AI. You got 1 minute or I'm coming back there. The one thing none of us are good at is professional sitters.
My pants. There you go.
Okay, bring us.
Yep. Here we go. All right, so also one other thing I did want to note is if you guys would like professional headshots, we will be doing them against the brick wall in the back with this amazing gentleman who is also giving his 86,400 seconds out of his day to come and join this and do this with us. So if any of you need a headshot, please feel free to head over there and he'll take it. After the talks, we will be having the happy hour and there's food and everything. And so again, thank you all for taking the 86,400 seconds out of your day. So with that, I will ask you, and yes, I need a raise of hands. How many people have met 5 people at a minimum that they didn't know before? What's up? Okay, you're going to play musical chairs and go sit with somebody that you haven't met before. This is an amazing community, and this is why we all do this. So please utilize the network that you have the optimal possibility to utilize. The person next to you may be somebody that could help you. And how many people in their conversations to meet those 5 people brought 2 things that they're bringing to the table and 2 things that they need? Oh, you better give me a raise of hands, guys. Come on. All right. Well, that's your challenge during happy hour. And yes, I will be asking and holding you all accountable. So with that, we want to kick off the panel of how to take the bullshit out of AI. So I want to allow each of our amazing people here to introduce themselves.
Malcom Harkins, Chief Security and Trust Officer with, yep, you guys can hear me, right? With Hidden Layer, who won the RSA Sandbox Innovation Award last year for security for artificial intelligence.
I'm Joe Hall, Head of Security Services for Nile. We're a network security startup that breaks up the broadcast domain and isolates you on your switch and access points so that there is no lateral attack vector.
Hi, I'm Rex Guo, co-founder and CEO of Community. We're a new startup that we build AI agents for SOC. So we do all the tedious investigation and triage for the SOC analyst. And we're one of the top RSA Launchpad finalists this year.
Hi, everybody. My name is Itzik Kotler. I'm the CTO and co-founder of SafeBreach. We're a breach and attack simulation company, and we're basically doing offensive for defensive purpose.
All right, so with that, I'll just start off the panel. So we will have questions, but if somebody has an emerging question that they just really want to ask at the time, please feel free to raise your hand. This is an ebb and flow, as is our community. So with that, I would like to start it with the one confusing part of AI is so many people say that they use it. When you walk into that RSA convention, you're going to see AI, 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 just like we saw ML, 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 right? So I see you all shaking your heads. So this is the problem. So I want to go through and just ask, what is actual AI? Because a lot of the people that are saying that they're using it are not.
Well, yeah, I think it goes back for a long time. I mean, AI has been around and been used in a corporate context for decades, but the marketing machinery of not only tech companies, cybersecurity companies, and everything else has stuck the label on it. I was at Silence, one of the early cybersecurity companies utilizing artificial intelligence. And when we started getting market traction, guess what? All the old guard AV started saying they were using machine learning and AI, and they weren't. They were just saying they were doing it. So that's occurring. And I mean, the easiest way to is say, what are you doing? How are your models working? Where are you sourcing them? How many data scientists do you have? Ask basic questions and you can ferret out who's just labeling something versus who's actually got real effort behind it. And just another side note on it, because it's gotten so bad, the Security Exchange Commission, as well as the Federal Trade Commission, has started going after companies for what they call AI washing, basically labeling things with AI when they're not really doing it, because it's false advertising, FTC. If you're a public company and you're doing that, it's misleading to investors. So SEC is getting involved in that too.
Yeah, I know. And looking at different startups, there's a quick way to tell if the startup's even possible. So a lot of people have great ideas out there, but do they have silicon on order? Like, if not, they got to get in line behind Google and Facebook and everybody else who wants that silicon. And then if they do have the silicon on order, do they have the electricity to run it? Right now, current predictions for AGI models to do what everyone's saying they do would consume more electricity than we currently produce. So, you know, how viable is that? And is it actually AI? So, you know, I've come from a network security and firewall background. We've been doing machine learning on UTM firewalls or next generation firewalls for 20 plus years now. You know, firewall security started out with ports, protocols, and just access rule, access list based security. And then we started evolving saying, hey, we should start keeping databases of these bad actors, and we call them signature databases, and we kept lists. And then those lists got so damn long, like computers couldn't read them quick enough before the packets going by. So it's like, all right, well, what do? We start tracking how the order of appearance of the triggers on this list. So, all right, all the firewalls in the world are showing these top 100 viruses. So let's optimize these firewalls and we'll chop out a lot of that signature database list and we'll only present the ones that are most common. So then their numbers look good when they're doing tests and they're trying to sell the firewalls, so that they show, oh, well, this is optimized and this caught all these signatures really quickly. But if you start testing old code on that firewall, it goes right through it because there's no signature for it paying attention anymore. So is that AI? No, that's a list. Like, so you start looking for a behavioral heuristics. So you start watching what a packet or what behavior comes through your network and you start deciding, okay, is this a normal behavior or are we starting to track those behaviors? All right, so this user on average accesses this database 10 times a day. And all of a sudden on Tuesday, they hit it 12,723 times. That's not normal. Something should trigger that, right? So we start saying, okay, we're doing behavioral heuristics and we're going through this and we're setting triggers for that. But are we predicting what's happening? No, we're still just watching what's happening and reacting to it. So if you start watching what's happening, reacting to it, and then your software goes out and starts hunting the source that's doing that and saying, hey, this source has been behaving badly frequently, and it will dynamically report that and file a ticket with your threat intelligence team to say, hey, let's go look through this because now this company's on the MITRE ATT&CK framework and they're watching a process flow through the network and it's hitting your switches and it lands on a wireless camera and all of a sudden it laterally moves off that wireless camera into other devices. Are you watching that happen? Or did you only watch it come through the edge and then it does whatever the hell it wants when it's past that point because there's no gatekeeper anymore? If you don't have endpoint protection on your computer and it goes through your cameras, your printers, how are you going to know it's going through your network? Like is it actually predicting and watching that stuff? So there's a lot of devices and security companies that say they're doing AI and they've got a signature database that is triggering and they're calling it AI and they're slapping a label on it. It's not like, just like you said with the antivirus companies, I worked for Symantec and PGP and they acquired us. And I saw this evolution of Symantec and McAfee and these old iron, the initial phase of cyber companies coming on board. And as companies actually, couldn't get the development stuff to move on, they moved on and started other companies that did EDR and they had smarter AV and they had stuff that was actually sniffing and actively hunting your network and looking for bad actors rather than just reacting to it when it smacked them across the face. Like, yeah, anyway.
Tell us how you really feel, Joe.
Get off my soapbox. Yeah.
So I think I agree with Malcolm that there's a marketing piece and then there's a technology piece. From a technology perspective, I work on security product for 7-8 years across several generational product. And every generation of the product that I used to work on, we use some kind of AI, right? Like today in marketing, people will call it anywhere from statistics to large language model, everything belongs to AI. And when vendor project that, using the AI marketing term, they want people to think what is the latest breakthrough, right? We have the latest breakthrough in AI. So I think what's most important is to focus on the capability that the AI provide. And I think what's exciting because of the large language model is that it seems like it's able to perform a lot of the complex tasks that human is able to do. Now, related to security professional, we have people doing investigating alert like a SOC analyst, doing vulnerability mitigation, doing pen testing. Now, if you work on this different profession, you can think about your daily work. How much of these things can actually be automated by the latest AI? And when you approach those technologies or the vendors, I think those are the questions that you want to ask them. And then if the product that you see is a shim layer on top of LLM, right? Then pretty much that's some very, very generic AI technology, and it's not really the breakthrough that people want to see. I mean, that's my take.
I think the panel already said everything I had to say, but I will just add my 2 cents to the matter. I think that I personally, in my humble opinion, see AI as an algorithm. Now, there's obviously more to it, the data that goes to it, the algorithm itself. But from an adversarial perspective, AI doesn't mean better. AI doesn't mean that it can be evaded. AI doesn't mean that it's the end game. It's a solution to a problem. As the panel here said, sometimes it's a very complex problem. Sometimes it's just shortening the signature list. But it's important to understand that, again, until AI will achieve the AGI or some other big major milestone, AI is just an algorithm that can be bypassed and evaded. So keep that in mind when you keep hearing the buzzwords. AI doesn't mean it won't be unstoppable or unbreakable.
Does anybody have any questions on what AI actually is? All right.
The word AI, I mean, we mean machine learning because AI does not exist. Right?
There,
We just use the word AI in machine learning, right?
Yeah, but that gets back to, so for those that didn't hear him, people use, it's not really AI, it's machine learning. You're totally right. But the reality is it sounds sexier and cooler to call it AI, right? And guess what? My mom wouldn't understand what machine learning is. My kids wouldn't understand it.
But she saw Terminator.
Yeah, exactly. So you get AI. And so, but that's why it's simpler for folks.
yes, so very good point. And I will take full responsibility from the marketing side of, although I'm that bridge between the technical and the people, and taking these ideas that everybody has out of their heads and making it consumable and usable. And yes, I'm part of that problem, which is why I also want to be part of the solution. Because everything is not AI, everything is not ML. So thank you for bringing that up. Are there any other questions as far as like what exactly AI is? All right. Well, so let's get into ethical. So if we look at the difference between what's safe and what's ethical, there's a huge difference between the two. Would you not all agree?
Yeah.
And sometimes what's safe keeps our environments safe, but maybe not be ethical. Or what is ethical may not keep our environment safe. And it's two totally different ways of looking at things. So it's not a checkbox like a SOC 2 audit. And so I'm going to go to Malcolm on this one.
Yeah, well, there's three ways in which I look at this. There's ethical aspects, there's legal aspects, and then there's security aspects. If you think of them like a Venn diagram, they all kind of interrelate. Let's see again, in machine learning is built and driven off of data. So depending upon when you even look at that, you can think of, was the data ethically sourced, right? How did you get the data? Was it just publicly available on the internet and you scarfed it up? Well, okay, some people would say that's fine because it's publicly available, but what if it wasn't intended to be in the public domain? What if it was leaked intellectual property? What if it was leaked personal information, right? So you have to think about that. Back at not only at Intel, but at Silence and the other companies that have used machine learning and artificial intelligence, I always had a code of conduct for our data scientists, right? Understanding those components of it. Then you start getting into all the Gen AI and all the predictive stuff, and you go, there's this big push around responsible AI so that it's free of bias. It doesn't favor, Malcolm, who's over 50 and a white guy, over somebody else. There's ethical components there, but you can do all that work up front and have a non-biased model go into production, and it can still become biased because the attacks that can occur against it that would then negate the non-bias activity that you did up front. So you're going to have to look at all of these things. And then when you apply the legal framework on top of it, again, you can be legal and unethical. You can be legal and insecure. So you have to really look at how you stitch your policies, your practices, your expectations for not only the models, but the data scientists themselves in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it.
It's that fast, cheap, and easy pick two.
Yeah,
Right?
there you go.
With help, so during COVID, we jumped in and helped a bunch of hospitals that were some in the Bay Area, some in Chicago, some in Dallas, that were just under attack, to put it lightly. They had technical debt that was, through the roof, and they had a new data company that was coming in and being involved in transferring them into a hybrid model into the cloud. And they weren't the only hospitals doing this. Most people aren't aware that the shift that happened in 2000 for healthcare alone, it was the result of billions of dollars donated by Microsoft and Google and AWS to save our healthcare system and move our data sets into the cloud. Some people did it cleanly, some people did not. There's AI models that track healthcare now, and you have to look at the PII that goes into that and what patient information can actually be shared with certain models or added to others that shouldn't be involved with others that could poison an entire data set. So especially when they're doing drug trials, and you're taking in all the data from patients that no longer is just, someone with a clipboard and seeing what happens with this drug. They're testing the genetics before and after with these patients, and they're holding on to this really sensitive information. How ethically do they handle that information? Where do they store it? Is it encrypted in store and at rest? Is the data obfuscated so that if somebody were able to get a hold of it, or all the names jumbled up so they don't make any sense and you can't pin them down.
But even there, if you do all that, and any entity that interacts with the model still may be able to dump that data, infer different things, and basically extract the PII.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect, and you mentioned drug trials, if you're in the manufacturing of drugs and you're doing that, you would actually intentionally introduce bias for different ethnicities and gender in order to figure out, is somebody going to be harmed at a greater proportion than somebody else? And so you have to actually, in those areas, intentionally add bias in order to test for drug interactions or negative consequences.
And increase your data set. It's garbage in, garbage out. Like if you look at the effectiveness of GPT-3, 5 versus 4, it's like the difference of talking to a toddler versus a full-grown adult. Like it's not even close. Both are useful, but like you get a lot of garbage and hallucinations out of 3.5 when you're versus running 4. So, you know, the amount of data you're taking into the pool and the quality of it takes massive play, and the risk and liability as well with PII and how you're using the data. If you're marketing with it, you're allowed to use it different ways than if you're just keeping records. Understanding those guardrails and laws, even though some of them aren't great or defined right now, there's enough in there that could nail you to the wall for mishandling information, especially in Europe or California.
And I'll add to that too, like a lot of these companies are small businesses.
Yeah.
They don't know the information that they're even handling or how to secure it. They're working off of their personal laptops at the office. So it's up to all of us to really teach the community, because that's all of our information. You know, there's no FUD in anything that we're talking about. It's just, again, I go back to the community. Alone we're all strong, together we're unstoppable. And we have to share this information, because it's the people that don't know what they don't know that we have to get to.
Yeah, I think a lot of points are being brought up. Totally agree with those points. Since this is a hacker conference, I will just talk about different angle where a lot of these things, if you actually interactive with it, practice with it, then you can even realize that the implication deeper and how these things can be abused. I know there's a company called Cara. They host this open red teaming game where you can basically, you know, do a CTF and try to break into different levels of LRM, and they have hardening at different levels. So I encourage folks to try yourself and see how those systems can be abused and really realize the implication of how LRM can be abused.
Yeah, again, the panelists cover a lot of topics before reaching to me, but I'm happy to add my 2 cents here, actually on the other side of it, not just on how the data came to be and how the safety and ethical of the data, but looking at the general purpose models, the Gen AI that is available right now, when people talk about safety and ethical, is ChatGPT essentially can help you today write exploits and ransomware. And you may have that knowledge already, you may have studied computer science, but some people didn't. Some people just know how to spell exploits and ransomware, and that's not a big challenge right there. So how does these companies from one end offering these huge computation services, these chatbots that you can just talk to, and at the same time making sure the outcome is going to be net positive to everybody? And if you look at that, this already started kind of like our general, you know, security type of a cat mouse type of a game where people are coming up with jailbreaking and essentially finding ways to make these models cooperate with them, doing an end game which is, again, not ethical and not safe. Again, obviously, we here very much focused on the security aspects of it in the digital realm. Obviously, there's also physical security and physical safety. And these models also study physics and other subjects that, again, some people know, but others don't. And then the same way they can help you create a ransomware, they can also help you create a bomb and other stuff. And this all falls into the same umbrella of how do we make sure these models are safe and ethical.
Yes, and Itzik gave a great speech on it's very simple to jailbreak ChatGPT. It was amazing talk. So to that point, so how do you know what to use? How do you know what is safe, what is actually AI, and what can you use and utilize? So as a community, we're all very open source. As you know, within your company, you're given certain environments of your architecture that you're told to use. So how do you know what to use and what's going to actually enhance what you need to get done in your job?
Well, there's, I don't know how many people are familiar with repositories like Hugging Face or other ones like it, right? There's hundreds of thousands of models out there that you can go download. I can tell you right now, thousands and thousands of those, the data's already been poisoned. There's malicious code embedded. There's malicious callouts that are there. If you look at the terms and conditions of most of those public repositories where you can go grab foundational models and use them, in their terms and conditions, they take no responsibility to assure for the security or privacy of the models. It'll functionally work, but they've already been downloaded and in many cases are in use. So what you need to do is actually scan those models, right? How often would you allow a PDF file to come into your environment and email without scanning it to look for things? Probably not.
Never.
Right, never. But guess what? We're allowing models into our environment and we're not doing anything to really scan to give us a level of integrity that the model itself hasn't already been compromised that will affect me, my operations, or perhaps my customers.
Yeah. We use AI at Nile inside of our support system. So we have a system called AI Ops that will generate tickets and read errors in code and generate suggestions in how to fix it and pull in the engineers involved. And it shortens our support time from, something it could take 6 months into a couple weeks or less. So that helps us, but it's also, dangerous, and it's tested, and we run it through the ringer, and we have individual pen testing companies and individual pen testers sometimes come in and break it and test it, and we eat our own dog food and have everyone messing with it, constantly trying to find it acting up, because we don't want that to happen in front of a customer or have something wrong happen. So we're constantly, testing it and making sure that it works.
And I can tell you that's necessary, but it's also not sufficient. I mentioned I came from Silence. Public information, 2019, Silence's AI machine learning capability was hacked. You can go look it up. A blog posted Silence like kill you. We were over the top in everything we did to protect the company and protect the product. And we didn't identify it when they were interacting with the product in a way that they could then figure out the model weights to then figure out how they attached a string to a binary to then create a universal bypass that rendered the product useless.
I was hoping you'd bring that up.
Hey, you know what?
Which is why
If nothing else,
it
we are all
learned.
transparently
Yeah.
blunt.
We learn, right? We
got to
make
learn. We're in this
mistakes,
together.
But
Yeah, and you
can find there's a MITRE attack framework that was already mentioned. MITRE has an Atlas framework. It's an attack framework for AI. It's really, really useful. I suggest you go read through it because it will give you, and they have case studies, and they basically take that same methodology but apply it towards artificial intelligence attacks.
Got some more to add?
I think, one of the things that is our industry is evolving is all these models that are coming out, and people are using cutting edge technology and deploying it and use it to solve some customer problems. I think the standard of establishing what is secure mean for these latest generation of models, that standard, like MITRE's framework is a great step ahead. And I think the wider industry, the wider industry still need more effort to actually, adopt these frameworks and show proofs, how much, degree of security that they achieve based on these frameworks. I think we still need time to get there. Yeah, that's my take.
I'll just add and say that I think that we all as an industry understanding that AI is part of the supply chain, and whether these are the models that coming from open source or even from commercial companies, it doesn't guarantee that they're correct, that they're useful, that they're ethical. And the same way that we treat today our third parties APIs or third party files or data source, the same type of security needs to be applied to them. That's all.
So with all of, right to your point, with all of these different options that people can deploy, and all of us, we're all hackers, right? So we're going to use open source. We're going to use all these things. They may go against whatever our company might need. And the first thing that I see is people turn stuff off so that they can use what they want to use. So how can you defend against all of these open source AIs?
I don't think you defend against them. I think what you do is you embrace them and then you shape the path of their use. And then you have the right scanning capability to validate that it's an appropriate thing. But you can't block it. When you block technology innovation, you drive people around security, you drive people around controls. And guess what? Half of the people on the floor down the street love it when they're shadow IT. Because when you have a control and you've impeded a user or business process and they go around you, the security industry loves it because it creates more risk. So, my view is you got to run to the risky things to shape the path of the risk, because if you don't, you're going to generate more risk.
Yes, yes. Can we get a hell yeah and a woo woo? We don't want to be our own worst enemies, guys. We're all in this together. Alone, we're all strong. Together, unstoppable.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. I mean, shining light in dark places with on not knowing what you don't know and finding your blind spots in that. I mean, if they just jump in with it and learn it. You'll start playing with models, have your dev teams work with them and figure it out. And we're all security guys, and we're, sometimes called the department and no, and that sucks because most of us don't want to be that. A lot of security isn't just stopping everything. It's optimizing the business process so that things work and flow correctly and they don't have speed bumps or things that can go wrong, so that everything, functions. You're building better flows within a business so that, the business makes more money, is more successful, and everyone eats, So, yeah, I would just not be scared of it and jump in and try and learn and get your hands dirty a little bit and hopefully you come out the other side.
So I love the fact that you pointed out that sometimes we're known as the people that just say no. And the funniest part is we're the people that do turn the stuff off just to test it. Don't stop trying to test stuff. Please do, because innovation is innovation. Use the technology and the innovation to help you. When my children were small and wanted a calculator, he said, show me how to do the math, because you have to check it. Even with all these AI programs out, ChatGPT is a great example. People are thinking, oh, we can just let go of these jobs because we can now use ChatGPT or whatever some of these new AI things are that are coming out. Well, the question is I can tell if something was used and ChatGPT was utilized to get that message across. And it's very obvious. So use the technology, but know the information and push that around the community. So use it for what it's good for. Elevate it and use it to elevate yourselves. But don't be the idiot that just thinks that they can submit an essay in your theories by using ChatGPT. You have to actually know what you don't know and learn from that and be able to utilize it.
You can go back even to early PC days and early applications. I've always said a fool with the tool is still a fool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think actually in this AI era, security team are actually in a much better position, in my opinion, compared to the traditional technology transformation, because AI, everybody's talking about AI, and when your company, if it is using AI and you're selling this as a service to a customer, one of the first thing customer will ask is, how is my data protected through your AI model? Like, what are the measures, the guardrails that you put in? And actually, security team is being brought to the front to answer that question, to figure out a strategy, how to respond to the customer. And security team is actually becoming a business enabler in that aspect. So recently I talked to a lot of CISOs and I asked them, what's on top of your mind when you think about Gen AI? Everybody is saying, how do I secure that in my environment? And how do I respond that to our customers' request? So I think we're actually in a very great spot and adopt this technology and play with it. And based on the business requirement, actually come up with metrics to understand how do you put the guardrails for your business.
Be the department of how, not the department of no.
There you go.
I love it, Itzik.
Dropping bombs over there.
Yeah, just drop the bomb, drop the mic, walk away. So with that, I want to just wrap up real quick and be very cognizant of those 86,400 seconds that we all have in a day. So the implications of AI. So there are a lot of people in our industry that are utilizing it, which is fantastic, building it, which is fantastic. And I'd like to discuss the implementations of it and what are any serious risks and where do we see the future going with AI?
Well, again, there's a ton of use cases that are already out there. Companies been using it. McKinsey published a study in October of last year, Freeport McManaman. It's a public mining company, so they mine copper. They've been using AI now for a couple of years, and they're delivering $350 to $500 million of EBITDA benefit. EBITDA, for those that are not finance folks, is earnings before interest and taxes, and they've avoided $2 billion of cost in their mining operations. Huge benefit for it. There was another study released the other day. In the airline industry, there's a labor shortage for people doing maintenance. And so there's looking to be using generative AI to make people that are a little bit less skilled be able to do some basic maintenance easier. Again, that should improve flight time maintenance. Again, risk side, hopefully it doesn't tell them not to put a bolt back and a door comes off. So you've got these amazing opportunities, again, some risk issues. In the financial sector, it's been used for a long time to detect and mitigate fraud. Right? So you have all these really, really cool capabilities that could be in place that can transform lives, create economic and social benefit. Imagine a younger child who has a learning disability interacting with ChatGPT. I've got a friend, security professional, back earlier last year, ended up with tongue cancer, had to have surgery, couldn't speak, was using generative AI to basically use recordings of him to create speech back for people. Really cool, right? So there's amazing opportunities for that. Again, deep fakes, right? So every opportunity creates an opportunity for risk, and we just always need to be cognizant of it.
Yeah, personally, I mean, Art, I think this year's conference, we're going to see a ton of this. Or back there, the AI generated awesome looking slides. My talks are full of them. I don't know if everyone else.
Okay, so I will say that there's a couple stickers up there to our lovely badge company that are not AI generated. And there's literally, if you look at this table over here, we're going to raffle it off with a signature because they were not AI generated. This was.
That one is, you can tell because the side.
Again, back to the point. So here we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
But you can tell. And
Yeah.
so don't be the fool.
Yeah, I do love the art, but like I've also seen, like I went to a Kia dealership and I was checking out the EV9 and like love the car. I'm super like, I have a Tesla that I've done stuff to it. Don't disable me, Elon, if you're listening. It's fun. It's fun to get in there. It's a Linux OS, and I have access to all the sensors, unlike a terrible CAN bus in a regular OBD2 car. So like I have BMWs that I hacked too, and it's new fun. But like going to the dealership and I'm talking to people and asking them questions, and the kid is using Snapchat AI to relay those questions back and forth. I'm like, bro, I could have Googled this myself before I came. Like, don't use it so bad that it looks obvious that you're using it, and it's like it's not pretty, in that sense. So it's a tool, and it can be used incorrectly. A hammer can be used to hit a nail, or it can thump yourself in the thumb. It's all relative.
The one thing that I would tell you, if you haven't really started thinking about it, is get really good at prompt engineering. And the prompts you put into it and how good they are determines the output. Prompt engineering is going to be a big area where there's going to be a lot of focus and a lot of skill development. And you really need to think about how to up your game in your prompts, because that will really then get a lot more value out of the AI you're using.
I think there's AI is just getting increasingly smarter and faster. My personal story is me and my co-founder. My co-founder is hardcore AI person. I remember a few years back when we were hanging out with serious AI researchers in a person's house, and they were showing me. I'm the only security person there, and they were showing me what's being produced from GPT-3. I was so unimpressed. Okay, but they're all super excited. They were so excited that this is AI can do. Fast forward to when GPT 3.5 release, I was completely blown away by the capability, right? And now GPT-4 and the newer ones are going to come. I think not just from a generation summarization, the content perspective, I think over time, the reasoning capability will also increase. With that, I think AI-based assistant in everybody's life, I think that's coming very soon, not just on the personal life perspective, but also at the professional life perspective. No matter what profession you are, that professional assistant that is going to automate the tedious work away from your job, that is going to come in the next few years. That's what I believe. I think for us, what does that mean for us? I think the earlier we adopt and cooperate with AI, product and technology, that will help us to actually accelerate how we operate for the future in our career as well.
I have nothing to add.
All right, Itzik. So I want to open it up real quick to any questions.
Thanks. By the way, thank you for having me. I'm from the East Coast. Used to manage a large pen testing team at a big healthcare company. Perfect question for vendors. When I'm choosing technologies and you have AI embedded based on everything that you've talked about, how do I hold you accountable to keeping your implementations of AI clean?
Don't rely on a SOC 2.
Yeah, so what's fair and what's effective?
For me, being both on the vendor side, but also still practicing security and asking questions of vendors myself, it's like, hey, where are you using AI in the technology you're creating for me? Is it homegrown, or did you get a foundational model from someplace? I'd ask them, have you scanned the model to check for the malicious code, malicious callouts, and all that stuff? Yes or no? If the answer is no, well, I shouldn't trust it. The answer is yes, okay, I can trust that component of it. Then the next question becomes, how are you doing, in essence, continuous monitoring of the AI to look for prompt injections and model theft and all that stuff, and take them to the MITRE ATLAS framework and say, tell me which of these things on the MITRE ATLAS framework for AI that you're covering and what you expect me to do. Have it just a data-driven dialogue. And if they look at you and go, what's MITRE ATLAS? Well, you got a problem.
That was a great answer.
Would you use S-bombs?
S-bombs, so yes, but and again, there's this concept of AI bombs now or ML bombs. But again, if take it out of the concept of technology. If I'm a chef, the bill of materials is an ingredient list. They might be an organic farm, it might be a great butcher and all that other stuff, but that doesn't guarantee I'm not going to get food poisoning. How I cook it, how I prepare it, how I leave it out, the environment, the utensils, all the operating environment determines whether or not I get food poisoning. The bill of materials does not.
Thank you. Great metaphor.
Hey, I've noticed a trend in a lot of recent security conferences where best case scenario, the speaker would gloss over a lot of really important technical details when they're giving an AI talk. Or in a worse situation, they embrace the black box nature of it. Oh, the computer figured it out. And as a practitioner who really wants to understand the details of how everything works, I find that really horrifying. So what, if anything, can we do to better disseminate deeper, more impactful technical information about all of this AI stuff so that we can properly learn how to secure it? Is there any value in doing something like that?
Well, that's the biggest problem that most people have, because there's no explainability, there's no transparency, right? It's like this input came in, this output came out, and it's a black box in between, right? And you shouldn't accept that. Right? Dig into the architectural aspects, dig into the data flows. And again, we all know that some aspects of it are going to be unexplainable, but they should be able to talk about how they did the training, how they set the parameters, how they did matches from one model to another. And then be able to tell you what steps that they took to validate the model, validate its security, and then when they put it into production, what things they're doing to look for abuse or attacks against the model. And depending upon the answers you get, you'll either go, they have their shit together, or they're shit for brains. Either way, you make a choice.
I like white papers. If it looks like an engineer wrote it, I usually believe them. If it looks like marketing wrote it, I move on.
What about Gen AI wrote it?
Even worse.
Then you better know what the hell you're doing beforehand.
Bloopers.
Yeah, I had a question. So you'd mentioned a few times, a couple of you, about scanning the models. So let's say, as a community member, as an ethical hacker, I want to work with some of the open source models, just play around with them a little bit. So what would be some methods or ways, maybe tools I could use to scan those models, check and make sure the data isn't poisoned? I think that's really hard going into it coming from, or just starting with AI. How do I do this responsibly? How do I use these models in a responsible way?
There are some open source model scanners. Again, like some aspects of them, they're limited for the file types, the model types, whether the model's on-prem or in the cloud. And so you can get some open source scanners. I'd say they're pretty good. I work for a company that sells scanners. There's, other enterprises that we compete with that do the same thing. So I think it really just depends upon how much validation you want to do, but you can do some open source scanners and they'll give you some pretty good idea of anything that's going on. But you really need to understand does that scanner hit the file type and model type and deployment model for the model that you're looking to use.
Great, thanks.
All right, any other questions? I think there's one over here. Yeah, here we go.
Don't be shy. Come on down.
Don't be shy.
Sorry, I came in a little bit late.
No apologies.
So I do AI penetration testing. Where do you see that happening, going on a couple years from now, besides LLMs?
I can tell you it's happening pretty routinely. I mean, we've got a services team that's doing adversarial AI against a wide variety of models for a wide variety of customers. So I'd say it's beginning, right? If you look at all the penetration testing and red teaming stuff, it's maybe a small fraction of organizations that are using AI. know to engage pen testers or they've trained their teams on how to do it. But in the next several years, I think it will consume a large portion of the red teaming activities.
There are also tools. There's an engineer named Jeff Sims that built a polymorphic AI malware called Black Mamba that's terrifying. He builds other things like agent analysis, LLM that will do like threat intelligence off of data dumps that we'll be releasing in the Dark Art Sandbox on the 8th after we speak. I've got a collab thing going with him that we're doing. But there are pen testers that are actively not just pen testing themselves, but building AI tools and models to do the pen testing for them.
Yeah, there's a few dozen open source models that you can download. HiddenLayer released a threat report back in March. We've shared a bunch of our research, but there's also a list in that. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but there's a couple dozen easily available attack tools that you can get to attack AI.
Okay. What about your thoughts in reverse engineering with the help of AI for like software for exploitation?
Yeah, it's happening, I'm sure, and it will happen more frequently.
Are you asking if people will use it to write exploits?
Yeah, have you seen any of that go on yet?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Into like, code paths taken using AI for fuzzy.
yeah, they are. I mean, like I said, I mean, ChatGPT and all the public chat bots are available. Some of them already understanding some of those things are not ethical and they will push back. And then the whole jailbreaking and prompt engineering becomes an issue. But also there is also the case where a lot of the general available models are not aimed for that particularly. So they're not doing a very good job at that. But then some people create their own models where they feed them more specific data sets so they get a better result. But it's already happening, yeah.
I was just gonna say, so Itzik, he did a presentation of our first meetup of the year, how he created ransomware using ChatGPT. So if you go to youtube.com/Pacific Hackers, you'll see his talk and he covers that very well. So, yep, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any more questions? Scott?
That's a wrap.
All right, well, before that's a wrap,
Selfie.
can-
You're good at that.
Go back. Let me record that.
This is his second rodeo.
A picture of the
Bloopers.
selfie.
a
Doing the
B-roll.
selfie.
It's a selfie, it's a selfie.
Marco.
And I'm gonna see like this infinity mirror that just goes back and back and back.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Awesome.
so if nobody has any more questions, I'm